Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Adobe Photoshop Masterclass course, bringing you from beginner all the way to intermediate. Let's get back to it. So we know we just created the document, and we know we had to do the brief, emphasis on the word brief, overview at the start. Now we have created the document, which means we have access to all the other sections that we know were blanked out before. You know, all this stuff, filters, look at all this awesome stuff that we have access to. And in time, I'm not going to overwhelm you, but in time, we're going to go ahead and break all of this stuff down one by one. But right now, what we got to do is we got to get to the familiarization. Let me walk you through the layout. This is our official introduction to the layout. So, the arguably one of the most important things that you're going to be using is going to be the toolbar. Now, the toolbar can be a little fiddly, but for the time being, because we are on the absolute default settings, the toolbar has been locked to the side over here. Very awesome, and this right here is pretty much one of the main things you're going to want to familiarize yourself with, because it is how you're going to be doing everything. As you see right here, I'm able to zoom in and out. This is because I'm currently selecting the zoom tool. Also, you have every other tool at your disposal right here, and this is stuff that we are going to break down in depth later on. I'm going to break down each individual tool, but for the time being, just know that this is the toolbar right here. This is how you're going to select your different, arsenal of different tools that's going to help you affect your project positively and actually create something awesome. Next up, you've got your navigation-based internal stuff. So you got your file, your edit, your image. We went over this stuff. However, the stuff we didn't get to go over was the stuff that was locked out. So first off, layer. You've got all your basic layer stuff here, all your basic layer properties, and you can actually go ahead and do some more advanced layer-based stuff here. Type is, to me, mostly ignored, but overall it revolves around text. Select is something that, again, is overall ignored, because the reality of the situation is a lot of these would be applicable if we weren't using and heavily using shortcuts, which shortcuts is something we have a full breakdown. I think it might even have to be a two-part episode coming up in the next section, because the reality of the situation, a lot of the edit section, the copies, the pastes, and honestly, same with the select section, a lot of this stuff is accessed entirely through shortcuts, and it's places I rarely visit myself. Now, edit, on the other hand, also does have some very advanced stuff that we'll get to a little bit later. For example, you've got some content-aware fill, something that will definitely come up. And overall, that right there is stuff that we'll get to in a little bit. Filters is going to be heavily used, and this right here is obviously how we're going to, or actually not obviously yet, but it will become obvious how we can actually take what I'm going to go ahead and call a more simple basic layer, and we can actually customize that, make it a little bit more advanced, and bring a little bit more out of it, essentially, using some of these filters right here. And you can get a lot more out of your pictures, a lot more out of your graphics using these filters, whether it be text, whether it be amplifying an object, making it stand out from the background. We are extensively going to be getting into filters. 3D will come up as well, and of course view is something we more or less don't access too much, based on the simple fact that we are accessing that either through a tool, aka the zoom tool, or through shortcuts again. And window, we already went over. Essentially, you are, if anything disappears, simply go up here to workspace, reset the essentials, and also you can turn stuff on and off if you want. For example, timeline, you can bring that down here, and that we'll definitely be getting to next when we come into creating GIFs, creating animations, etc. And overall, that is not applicable right now. So if you don't find yourself using a section, you can hover over the three bars over here, which pretty much signals settings, right, or properties of the tab, if you will. And you can go ahead and click close, and that will go ahead and shut that down. Now, everything that they give you by default is pretty relevant, so I'd probably go ahead and keep it open. This is basically how everything looks for me throughout the course of my Photoshop use. And over here to the right, this right here down here is the layers. Layers are going to stack up here. If we had 100 layers, it would just be background, or layer, and this will be full. So as we get layers, it will basically stock up. There will be one below this, one below that, one below that, and it will pretty much build up. Also, layers have different effects and properties down here that we'll be extensively getting to, and they also have various different channels, paths, which is not too applicable right off the bat, adjustments, which we'll be getting to heavily, libraries, which is not too applicable throughout the course of a lot of stuff you're doing, learn, which is kind of I mean, if you have to navigate to learn, I really have not done my job correctly. So let's ignore it, learn. Up here, some color wheels, etc. Stuff we could choose. Stuff that will become more obvious later down the road. Understand it's there, but don't focus too much on it at the moment. And to finalize things, this is, of course, your workspace right here. This is where all of our effects are going to be done. All of our edits are going to be done. Everything is going to be done here. And it's going to display our final project, our final document after we've built up an extensive project. So that right there is the layout, a small introduction to the layout. Of course, right there, the real hands-on introduction to the layout comes by doing stuff so that the actual actions are ingrained into your mind, and that's exactly what I want to get cracking with as soon as possible. So without further ado, let's end up the introduction and let's get started with the course. Let's go.